Here we go. Well, hello, everyone. We are so excited for you to join us this afternoon. My name is Burdolski, and I'm the Outreach and Education Director for North Dakota's Gateway to Science.
And I'm Alisha Kelim. I'm the Onsite Education Director.
So, for our session, we're going to be talking a little bit more about how we integrate student voice into STEM and how you'll be able to do that in your classrooms, as well as the importance of integrating career connections as well. So a little bit about us. This is a little screenshot of our building. If you haven't visited before, we are based out of Bismarck, North Dakota, and we just celebrated last year our 30th anniversary as an organization. And so we have had a very beautiful history, but a lot of what we do started because we want to inspire the scientist in everyone. And so with that, we always approach our mission and approach any program that we do integrating that student voice into it because we want to make sure that everybody is represented. But with our team, we have an amazing team of educators, specifically on our education team. We are a team of 5 at the moment, with myself and Alisha, and then we have 3 educators who help us travel across the state, provide programming like camps and clubs, but we all have some sort of education background, which is really cool because we're able to go into a classroom, be a trusted resource, and provide those amazing resources that we can. A little bit about Gateway to Science if you haven't visited us before. We are in a brand new state-of-the-art building. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary in March, and we have an amazing gallery space that has all different types of exhibits that people can interact with. And so that is meant for all ages. And so we have specialty areas for our younger friends as well as ways for people to learn at every single age. And so some topics that we highlight are forces in motion, looking at physics, energy, especially highlighting the energy sources that we use here in North Dakota. We are very special because in our energy section, we can also see across the river and see the oil refinery that we have an exhibit to highlight and show the process of as well. We have a lot of agriculture because that is one of our main ways to support our economy in the state. We have weather all around us as well as human anatomy. And then on the other side of our exhibits, we also have transportation, which is a wide variety of things like learning about how to make rockets, paper airplanes. We have a race car track that is longer than 20 feet. We have a flight simulator, some ways to integrate that into space. We also have a water section that allows us to highlight a water table that shows different aspects of water and the water cycle, as well as a working water exhibit that allows us to share information about where water comes from in the state of North Dakota. My favorite section is the space section where we're continually learning more about space itself. And we just got a brand new exhibit that is going out on the floor, hopefully within the next couple of days, to help us bring space to the normal everyday human being. And so we're very excited to highlight that. But then our last section is going to be our science first area. That is catered towards our younger learners with early childhood. When we were establishing it, we worked with UMary here in Bismarck to help us create some of the exhibits for it. And so it is great for our younger friends, but it is also very applicable to our older siblings so that they're able to have that collaborative learning. Now, in the bottom corner, you'll notice that there's a gray section that has an Erlenmeyer flask on it. Now, we have a dedicated learning space for all of our education programs. And so we have a classroom space that can be split into 2, which can also be rented, which is really cool. But we hold our 11 weeks of summer camps as well as our camps and clubs during the school year in that space. And then the lab that we have is our Frank Cook Lab, which was named after our founding scientist, a chemistry teacher at the Bismarck State College. He has passed away recently, but we love being able to bring his family in and show him the dream and the vision that we have had for more than 30 years. So quick glossing over some of the programs that we do offer as we talk about how we integrate student voice and careers into it. We have a STEM club that we do throughout the school year, 4 different sessions actually, one in the fall, one in the winter, one in the second part of winter, so after winter break, and then a spring session. And with that, every single week is different, and we are always highlighting different careers or different topics relating to it. We also have coding club for elementary, grades 3 through 5, and middle school. And with that, a career is always highlighted at every single session of the club. And with our clubs, we also use that student voice so that we kind of lead them through the process, but they help us shape the club itself to be what they want to learn. We have mini camps on the days that we do not have school, according to the Bismarck Public School calendar. But with that, it's a 1 day single snapshot of what we do for our 11 weeks of summer camps. And so every single week, every single day is different. And in the summer, we have 11 weeks of elementary camp and 3 weeks of middle school camps. We also have a lot of grants and partnerships, which is something that we'll touch on a little bit later about our career connections. But that is kind of our main source of getting into our community, providing those career connections, and making sure that important topics in the state are being discussed. We also have our early childhood programming, which is our preschool discovery hour. We have that twice a month. And every single month is partnering with a local or state agency that allows us to highlight the amazing things that we have in our state. We have a lot of special events here at our space, like our STEM Spooktacular, New Year's Eve. We have done International Observe the Moon Night. So if there's something to celebrate, we're doing it. One new program that I'm very excited to do, we have recently established it this past December, is our adult programming. So if you guys are in the Bismarck area or within the relative area, we would love to see you guys at our adult programming. All of that is shaped by our student voice, which is essentially you as the learner. And so everything is specifically curated to make sure that we are meeting the people where they are. So we just had an event called Science on the Rocks, teaching the science of mixology, which was one of the most requested things that we had. We're going to be teaching about the science of misconceptions and how to integrate experimentation into learning. We are also partnering with Jousting Lemur in Bismarck, and we'll be able to teach the science of wine pairings, which is very cool. We also do a lot of offsite programming. And so that could be workshops. We've recently revamped all of them to realign with North Dakota standards, but they do fall very closely with the next generation science standards as well. So if you are in a surrounding state, we do have that resource that we'd be able to come to you as well. One of our biggest things that we come to schools for is our STEM zones. And this is where we do the most career connections. Every single station that we have is connected to some sort of career path that they can do. So one activity could be our astronaut workstation, where kids get to practice being an astronaut with gloves on their hands and trying to do tasks. Or maybe it's being a pediatrician, where they get to use real tools that doctors use so that they can become the career. We also offer PD sessions as well as conferences, and we are currently working on our list to make it even more all-inclusive, to really emphasize that student voice, to make sure we're meeting our patrons where they are at.
So in starting, we really wanted to give you an idea of what we do, kind of to give some credit to what we're talking about today, which is really the student voice in STEM and making those career connections. We work with students, all age ranges, and we do consider adult students as well, all across the state. I know tons about North Dakota as being someone who's not a North Dakota native, because most of our programming actually takes place all over the state. And so whenever we were looking at this as a topic, we really broke it down into 4 pieces, and those are the little nuggets that I want to leave with you today. The career integration and how to do that in your classroom or in your learning space, and where to find some of those ideas, I think is really important. And again, there's tons and tons of resources, but the ones that we're going to highlight today are just some things to get you started. So a little bit of what we'll do today is really giving you time then to go in and click on some of these things and find the things that will work best for you in your own learning situations. We're going to talk about early exposure to STEM and role models, because that's so incredibly important. Obviously, if you're here today, you understand the importance of STEM, But really making those early exposure connections is incredibly important. Inclusive and student-centered practices, some of them that we're talking about today, I know you've heard of, some of them maybe you haven't. And so I'm going to show you some of my personal favorites as I'm building curriculum. And when I say that, we do informal. And so uh, I I was an educator previously, so I came from formal education into informal education. So hopefully there's a little bit of nuggets of both of those things that you can take away today. And then the last, talking about equitable access, that's something that's really, really important to us at Gateway to Science. Just because you're in a rural area, just because potentially you go to a school that isn't as resource rich as a larger district, just because you are in a population that doesn't have what other schools have, doesn't mean that you shouldn't have the same equitable resources that everyone else does. So those are really important pieces. All of these four things really are about encouraging engagement and ownership. It helps connect the to real world applications, which we know is important, that authenticity piece, and it builds those critical thinking and problem solving skills. So hopefully throughout these four, I can give you some nuggets that you can go and use in your creation of either curriculum or honestly, maybe even some programs concerning careers around STEM. So the first thing that we'll talk about is the real world career integration. We know as educators that authenticity is incredibly important for student buy-in. Integrating real world experience into academic learning, it helps apply the classroom knowledge in a practical work setting. They can gain hands-on uh, skills in that way. Those essential skills that we know that they're going to need someday are very, very important. But doing so in more of a work setting, it can take place at very, very early ages and take place all the way up. So it is something that we do here in every piece that we put on. Every bit of curriculum, every STEM zone kit, every workshop has that career connection. And so Hope's going to talk a little bit about some of the grant partnerships that we've done. And this could definitely be an opportunity for you to reach out to places like this because they were so excited to work with us.
One of our most notable partnerships that we have had is with the North Dakota Health and Human Services. We've actually received multiple grants through them because with the era of COVID, Health and Human Services across the country have seen that science centers often were a more trusted resource than, say, the Health and Human Services. And so they utilized us as a facilitator for conversations to help make sure that we are educated individuals who can make choices for ourselves based on factual information. So our last year's grant was relating to different careers that could highlight public health. And so we picked three different careers. It was for grades 3 through 5, and it was highlighting how to be a pediatrician, how to be an epidemiologist, which is like a disease detective, as well as being a virologist. And so we were able to create from scratch curriculum that allowed us to have them become the career so that they could see, oh, this is something that I really like to do. And this is actually really interesting to talk about. And so for our pediatrician lesson, we taught them about the tools that they use, as well as how to be heart healthy, as well as how to create a balanced meal, focusing on balance overall instead of saying, oh, this is good food versus bad food, because that is not how we want to frame health. We want to make sure that there is balance. And so that was one of our main focuses. For our epidemiologist, we created a poisoned picnic scenario. So they had to decide, looking at evidence, what made everybody sick. And so spoiler alert, it was potato salad because it was sitting out in the sun and so it spoiled. And so they all got food poisoning. But the students got to go through the process of going through the evidence and actually becoming that disease detective to figure out what happened. And then our last one with that grant was be a virologist. And this could be potentially a very tough topic to talk about, especially in the world that we live in, because there are a lot of different facts that people are hearing around them. And so ours was very factual based so that we could talk about, well, these are the things that you can do to stay healthy. And so we played a game where we were passing a ball around, teaching each other's names, but the kids did not know we put glow germ on the ball. And so as we passed it around, we shared our names, and then the educator themselves would say, "Oh, I'm getting sick." And so then they would see, "Oh, our germs got spread. I could get you sick." And then we showed them the germs on their hands. Then we were able to talk about how we keep ourselves healthy. So different methods like making sure that you stay home when you're sick, making sure that you are washing your hands. And then oftentimes the conversation would come up of creating a vaccine. And so we actually created a digital game that is now in our gallery space, as well as a digital version for us to take on the road to teach people about how vaccines are created, but in a gamified way. So, really showing them it's like a puzzle that they have to solve. And so, it takes out that common misconception of it and allows us to have the factual based information. Now, looking at this past spring, we were able to also work with the Health and Human Services to talk about the importance of experimentation to spot misconceptions in science, misinformation and disinformation. And so we got to go to different schools and teach people how to spot misinformation or misconceptions in news, and then show them how to properly research so that they know if it's true or not. And so it went over so well that we are going to be doing that specific lesson series with a group of adults for one of our adult programmings, because it's so important to have that literacy when it comes to being able to discern news. Um, One other very large partnership that we had was with Doosan Bobcat. And so they were really interested. They came up to us and they said, "We want people to stay in the state of North Dakota and stay in our pipeline so that we can get welders, we can get engineers, we can get people in our factories and in our industry so that they stay in North Dakota and we have them a part of our economy." And so we highlighted different careers relating to manufacturing. And so we integrated coding and we integrated different manufacturing pieces where they had to build a grabber with a Lego spike robot. And then they would have to make modifications to make sure that it would work for different sizes of skid steers, which we 3D printed, which was also really cool because we got to talk about 3D printing. But with our partnerships, it is always a collaborative process. We get to share our ideas and they get to say, "Oh, yes, this is perfectly aligned to what we do," or "maybe we should approach it in this way instead." And so it's very collaborative, but it allows us to bring that career connection as well as that North Dakota connection.
And these industries, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, this industry connection, what we find, obviously, if you are a classroom teacher, you might not have time to sit and create a curriculum like that. And that's why hopefully some of these will at least get you thinking about that. But they are willing and actually excited to work with anyone who wants to. And so when we talk about the energy companies and Doosan Bobcat and any engineering companies across the state of North Dakota, but also in other states, they are looking for people to partner with. They just don't know how. And so in reaching out to those, even as a classroom teacher, they are willing to, "Hey, we have this, we have that. Do you want us to come? What do you need?" And so that who can be difficult. So hopefully we can give you some ideas of where to start, but they are very much willing. And that's why we have such great connections. But looking at embedding career focus into lessons, I just chose three and they're very different. Some of the links that I have are things that an entire district could purchase or that you could purchase, but we don't have money, just laying around. But I will say that even some that are more on the purchase side, when I don't go past the paywall, I still get really good ideas from it for our workshops, for our STEM zones. And so I'm hoping that you can get some of those. So the first link there, it's called Career Clusters. This is just a web connection. It's kind of a great web that can be used. It's career ready practices in the middle. And then as you fall out, it's the cluster groupings of what those industry sectors are or what those purpose driven meta sectors are. And it goes all the way out into cross cutting clusters. This could be used for classrooms, or for me, as someone who's building curriculum or trying to put STEM and career into the lessons that we do, it's just a great web for me. Like I have kids who have said on their camp information that they really love building things. All right, what is tied to building things other than just engineering? And so then I can piece it out using webs like this to try and figure out exactly which careers then I want to highlight. So for me, just that one web, although it's a great website to look through also, just having that web available and webs like that are really helpful for me as I try to put in that real world career integration into lessons. The second link is it's a platform that districts can purchase, um, but it also has a great page about funding for K2, K-12 schools. We like to talk to schools about where they can find money to do cool things. So even if we don't aren't able to offer something, we want to be able to help schools find the funding that they need in STEM ecosystems. And so this, the defined connecting classrooms to careers, that link has a really great spot about that. But the way that I found it interesting was it has like food truck entrepreneur, app designer, aircraft designer. These are lessons that are sort of standalone, but I could take something, for instance, that I'm doing with ELA with my sixth graders, and I can use a food truck perspective and still teach ELA through it. So I can take what they've already done, I can change and manipulate it to fit what I'm doing without having to reinvent the wheel and make those STEM and those career connections very, very quickly. And I will say there's a lot of great websites like that. This is just one that I know also had that piece about funding, so that you might find helpful. The last is it's empowering educators. It's called BizWorld. And I like this site because there's a ton of done for you lesson plans already made. Again, there is some behind a paywall, some that aren't. The ones that are behind a paywall, I just glanced at but was able to get some really good ideas from. But they incorporate STEAM and SEL skills through hands on business experience. So now I have my STEM skills. It also puts in the SEL because we know that those soft skills are incredibly important. You have to be able to collaborate, you have to be able to communicate within a small group. And so it incorporates those in. I like that they can create and run their own companies, and some of the challenges that they have that I national challenges has students that have actually created their own businesses that are currently running, which I just think is so interesting. Most of them are local, but it's still such a cool thing to take it one step further. That authenticity piece is there, and it gives those students the voice that they need to choose what they want to do. I also love that there's a lot of different age levels that can be found on BizWorld, so you can piece it out from there. So please look at those just as a starting point as you're building real world career integration into your lessons. And so I'm going to have Hope talk a little bit about our industry connection, and I want to highlight again, we'll give you some industries that you might want to start with. They are willing and they want to help. And so it's really just making calls and finding the right people, or even having your office call or somebody in the district call. They have stuff and they have funds and they have people. And so we'll let you talk a little bit about that.
So we work a lot with industry. And so that could be like Doosan Bobcat. We have worked with North Dakota Soybean Council, the Petroleum Foundation, a lot of different representatives across the state. And they are so hungry to get resources into your classroom. And so it could be like you actually doing an externship, allowing you to come into the space and learn more about it and learning how to use those resources. Something that we utilized a lot with Bobcat when we were creating our curriculum for them was tours.
Mhm.
I got to tour their acceleration center here in Bismarck, as well as their factory, and then their Gwinner factory, which was actually the very first factory for Bobcat. I didn't know that it was created in Gwinner, North Dakota. And so being able to bring that North Dakota connection was really special to as we were creating it. And so tours are going to be an amazing resource that you can use because yes, sometimes there are proprietary information that they can't share, you can't take pictures of. But if you say, I really loved this thing that you have, they will try and get you something relating to it. And then a lot of them also have pre-made lessons. A lot of them have an education partner or an education person on their staff who works to create lessons that help you use them in your classroom. And so That can be for a wide variety of industry partners. Like I mentioned the few before, but there are so many others that are so hungry to get into your classroom, whether that's you personally or them coming into your classroom. Something that we do here at Gateway to Science with our programs is we actually invite industry partners into our summer camps. And so we have them come and present to our camps for an hour, and they get to share about what they do every single day. They get to share an activity with them that shows what they do on a daily basis, and then usually leaves them with things so that they can have that lasting reminder and that lasting effect. And so that industry connection is going to be so vital because they are so ready to get into your classrooms. And so it is very much a resource that I highly recommend utilizing because they want to help you. Mhm.
And lastly, for real world career integration, any scenario based simulations that there are, and there are tons online, exploration games, which are really for upper, like having a career dating, if you've ever done the speed dating to find your book, it has like a career dating idea. And so that's just an idea list that honestly I used as an educator, not so much in my informal role here at Gateway to Science, but Teachers Pay Teachers has a ton of scenario-based simulations that deal with the career integration so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel. And I started putting in a lot of my favorites, and then it got to be way too much. And so, but there are ones all the way from kindergarten all the way into college. So those are really great. Next is that early exposure and role models. And we know that that's incredibly important as educators, and we see that here every day. She talked a little bit about the guest speakers. And so we have local friends, and sometimes it's not even related to the job that they do, it's related to a hobby that they have. And one thing that we notice in those camp experiences when we do a STEM activity, could be very quickly, because I'm thinking with my teacher hat on, when we bring in the expert, even if they come in and do something or just share something for 10 minutes or an hour, the kids are left with a million questions. And those questions we know are what leads to the career connections. And that's when they go, I think I really want to do this someday. I want to learn more about this. And we pick up on that and we tailor our lessons based on that. So rarely do we get told no. And so if they're going to come see us, I know that they're going to come to your classrooms. We started with our staff. Who do you know that has any connection to STEM whatsoever? What can you do? Bring those people in. And now state agencies, flight, energy, healthcare, agriculture,
Beekeeping.
Oh, that was one of my favorites. They will come and they will present. And even just for a short amount of time, that authenticity and that early exposure is so vital. Peer mentoring, which I know a lot of you are probably already doing, but especially in those STEM centered classrooms, having those kids come into the younger classrooms is so important. We love to have our middle schoolers help our younger kids in the camps. Career role immersion is something that I was an English teacher, middle school, high school, and then I was a library media specialist. So I'm always trying to make where can that STEM piece come in and how can I make those connections? And so the workforce solutions or the When I Grow Up, I think is a great link to help make those connections. Like for instance, I think as an English teacher, instead of writing a research paper, write a bid simulation as if you were an engineer trying to get, well, that is persuasive writing. Persuasive writing has the same pieces in it no matter what type of persuasive writing you're doing. So you might as well put that career connection in, because then you're putting those pieces of STEM into their minds and thinking about careers. BIA lessons, we are big about those. We steal them, we come up with them, we use them. Be a space scientist, be a dentist, be an engineer. And we love to scaffold it if you want to work in the dental industry. Here are careers you can do with very little schooling after high school. Here are careers that you could do with a 2-year degree. Here are careers that you can do with a 4-year degree. So we really want to focus on all levels after high school. And we do that in our STEM zones and we do that in our workshops. But you can take a look at this one site. But again, there are millions of them out there. It's just one that I think gives you some really good lessons that you can embed into all areas, math, and not just science, ELA, which obviously I like to focus on. The last is one that I'm not going to click on any of those, but really the career assessments. This is where we can pick up on student choice. What do they want to do? What do they want to be? How can we then take the STEM lessons that we are doing and focus it toward them? Can't always do every single kid. I mean, we have 20 kids in one classroom and 20 in another every week all summer. But if we have 8 that are talking about, I love to build stuff, you better believe then we are going to have a lot of engineering things going on that week. And one way that you can do that is to informally assess careers. There's a lot that are available for upper grades. These are the MAP and the NDCTE soft skills assessment. The younger grades is something that I didn't know a lot about. And so in doing my research, whenever I was a library media specialist, these are some that can really talk to those younger grades about what do you want to be when you grow up. Really, you see doctor, teacher, police officer, vet, and builder. Those are the big 5, like in kindergarten and first. It's honestly because they don't know what's out there. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So I don't know everything that's out there. So even starting early, pause and Jobland is something that my school used across a K-3 interest inventory, and then tying it to those careers. It can be done at such an early level, and then taking it up into middle school and high school where they're starting to think about those careers. These are just a few that you can use for that. Is the inclusive and student-centered practices. And this, as speaking to educators and people who are working already, some of these you're going to know and some of them you're using. And so you'll see there's a lot less links here, but really talking about what we do and how we make it student-centered, and really how we put in that voice and choice is incredibly important to us. And we'll talk a little bit about it in the last slide here about equity and making sure that there is fair distribution of resources. But there's a lot of VR learning solutions, especially in secondary education. Transfer is one. It is a paid for. But I know that there are a lot of apps that are free or are not expensive that are learning solutions for secondary education that specifically deal with career. If you want to engage students, give them VR, talk about AI, put a device in their hand. This is one of those pieces that can be quick and ready. You could use it as an introduction to a STEM activity that you're doing. You can use it in absolutely anything that you teach. Most of it is of the VR, and we'll talk about AI in a little bit too. Most of the ones I'm finding are really geared toward the older student. There are laws about 13 and under, but there are still a lot of solutions that could work. This one in particular is district-wide. It has career lessons, CTE programming, summer and after school programs, career fairs. It has a lot of great, information, but it also has a VR piece where they can fully immerse themselves into a career, which I think is so cool. And it's something, honestly, I want to get here at Gateway to Science for our summer camps. Looking forward, because it's one thing to show and do, but then if you are in a VR simulation and you are standing in front of a gurney with a patient, I mean, that takes that to the next level. And also it provides equity to people who can't make it to us or make it to other places that can have those student-centered practices. Another great way to be inclusive, but also is very student-centered, is making solutions to local issues. I know a lot of you probably do this in your classroom, and we'll talk about PBL in a little bit. Our district for a while was very PBL-minded, and it's still resonating through the district that I was working for. We do that here, making those projects, but then making them local. We focus on very, very local issues, as in our building and our surroundings. And it can be that simple. We have bees now, which is very, very exciting. I love bees. I'm learning about bees. How do we keep the bees out of our outdoor explorium area, but still give them an opportunity to get to the pollination flowers? And so having those things that you know are already issues giving those to the students to actually solve, that's incredibly important. And we have found that that student voice comes through, and you start to see this student's really good at this part, this student's really good at this STEM field. And you see those things automatically come through, and they're practicing their soft skills. Um, the cognitive process mapping, these are things that we do anyway as educators. Why not put a career spin on it? Decision flow charts are things that are used in corporate. They're things that are used in engineering. They are things that are used in any type of planning in a STEM career. So why not model, if you're already doing a flow chart, model a flow chart after a career? Take the flow charts that you have, and you can just do a Google search, take a flow chart that would be something to do for a construction project and merge the two, even for younger learners, and make them into be a construction consultant. And you suddenly have this new engagement and this new inclusivity for all of your students. Journaling as a way to get writing in, and showing in STEM careers they write. I know that I'm speaking to you as an ex former English teacher, but in STEM careers, there is writing, and actually having some journals and showing them these are the journals that the engineers were using, and this is what came from it, shows the importance of writing, even when you're doing STEM. And again, millions of them are out there. This one is really important to us. It's hard to teach students how to fail. And we know now more than ever how incredibly important that is. Failure is part of the process, which leads to success. How do we adequately get students ready for that at a young age, and then build on that as they go through K-12 and then into college? I found, and there's a ton. Again, I'm not putting links because all you have to do is a Google search. I found one that I sent to our STEM educator that's doing some summer camp curriculum design, and it's a failure analysis report. And so it's a report that a design company would make, Doosan Bobcat, somebody who is making a big agriculture technology or a tractor. Okay, this failed. This is what occurred. This is my report. This is what I'm going to do next time. It's following that engineering design process, and it specifically points out the failure, why it failed, how I'm going to fix it, and how failure is actually part of the success. I want to pare that all the way down into our K-1-2 or our 1-2-3 summer camp. It's a way, first of all, we're writing again, but it's a way to get them thinking about failure as part of success. Why not put a career spin on it and show them, guess what? Everybody's doing it. We fail whenever we're building a skid steer. We fail whenever we're trying to design a city. And through that failure is where the success comes. So that is one thing that we have found really great for a student-centered practice. Performance-based rubrics, PBL, if you're not familiar, and I think most educators are, I just put the website for you to go look. What I love about it is they already have all of these rubrics, and you can take them and you can fix them and you can manipulate them. I will say that we use far less rubrics in informal than what we would in formal, but it's a great place to start. When you look at, and I don't want to call out my state, but this is one that I used even as a classroom teacher. Nebraska Department of Education did it right when it comes to this. And these are career exploration lesson plans that they have. I've never lived in Nebraska, but I love what they do, so I wanted to share it with you. They have lesson plans like, look at our community. What shoes will you wear? Career exploration in STEM careers, a day in the life. You can use these or parts of them for STEM projects. They add that authenticity in, they add the real world application in a blink. And again, you're not recreating the wheel, because unlike me, who gets to sit and create the curriculum, you have a classroom and you don't have the time to do. So I've taken pieces of lessons that they've done to incorporate into workshops before as an educator, but now in creating the informal, it just makes life so much easier. And it is one that helps to foster the student voice and choice. And we know that that's incredibly important. So the last one for inclusive and student-centered practices is authentic assessment integration. Again, I didn't put links because there's millions. You just have to know what to Google. If you are already building an assessment for a STEM project that you're doing, or you're trying to incorporate STEM into English, but you don't have a rubric made or know how to take those two rubrics together, think about your assessment in terms of a job. A bid for a job can easily turn into an ELA assessment. A patent application. If you're going to make something that's never been created before, there is a piece of that where you have to apply for a patent. Now you've integrated ELA. That patent, that writing piece now becomes your assessment. Did they do everything they were supposed to? Could they then explain all of those pieces? And you can use that to actually grade, which is something that's amazing that we don't have to do, which I love, but you can actually grade and assess. Use actual job performance rubrics for those soft skills. So instead of creating one of your own, go get a collaboration performance rubric from a job and tailor it to whatever grade level you teach, and use that and say, well, this is what it's going to be like in the real world. So that's the one that I'm going to use. Those are readily available. And honestly, and you know as well as I do, you can take it and change those. Please use AI to do that. I took one, it was a job performance rubric that I found that was really just for soft skills. I put it into, I can't remember if it was Copilot or ChatGPT. And I said, change this, make it applicable to a third grader, and it did. And so it was in seconds. So it's not even something that I would have to do. Magic School AI is one of my biggest things that I talk to teachers all across North Dakota about. It will make your life much more simple. So you don't have to recreate the wheel, and you don't have to do those things yourself. So lastly is that equitable access piece. We know that some of you may be teaching in very, very rural areas. Some of you might be teaching in cities. We know in North Dakota that there are areas that are what I call resource rich and some that aren't. And so one thing that we love to do is, or that we get to do, but we love it, we don't charge for travel. So if we travel 800 miles to get to you or 100 miles to get to you, we don't charge for that. We are grant funded to help with that so that we can provide STEM for all, because that's really important. But partnerships with industry is really where you're going to help ensure that equitable distribution of resources. That's where you're going to be able to talk to industry, get their help, have them come to you. And sometimes they even have funds available, especially for rural areas, especially for certain populations. Regardless of background or circumstances, for every single student to have equitable access to STEM, to have opportunities to discover and to prepare for these diverse career paths, this is so important. It does involve addressing barriers like lack of awareness or limited resources or just systematic issues sometimes that limit us in some of the training systems that we use. And so asking industry actually sometimes takes away those barriers, or coming to resources like us, because there are some in every state, there are some in our own state, can really help you with that. With the equitable access piece, I put AR powered career matching and VR simulations. And so I won't click on any of them. I will say most are behind paywalls, but not all. I didn't put any of the free apps because I haven't played with them and I don't want to share anything with you that I wouldn't use myself. But if you're using AI and if you're using VR simulations, you don't have to put kids on a bus. You now suddenly are giving every student, regardless of where they are, regardless of their background, regardless of how rural your area is, you're giving them an opportunity to get what everybody else is getting. And that's so incredibly important. If you're in a city, even city has issues sometimes with transportation, with making sure that resources are spread equitably across. The AI powered career matching, Job Force AI, Kick Resume, these are really for upper levels. And a lot of the AI is going to be, because AI really should be tailored for 13 and up or even higher. We don't always know where what we put into AI goes. So we have to be very safe and careful with those things. But there's a lot of new AI models that help match STEM skills that students like or excel at to careers. I haven't found a lot for younger students yet. Again, I think it's just an AI barrier. I would caution you with younger students too. We have to be very careful what they put into AI and where that information goes. But there's a lot for middle school and high school. It's going to help them take quizzes, figure out the things they're really good at and that they like, and then say, here's a career you might like, go try it. Here's a career you might like, go try it in more of a VR or AI sense. VR simulations, like we talked about before, these are just some of my favorites. Again, mostly these are large scale, but they can be done for anyone, anywhere. There are smaller ones that either don't cost as much or are free, but you get what you pay for a lot of the times. The cheaper versions can still be incredibly helpful, or the free versions. They let students choose research based on STEM skills that they enjoy. We know that if that buy-in occurs, we know that they're going to be excited. We've got them. Then the skill building is so much easier, because if they're engaged, we got them. And honestly, that's our point. So my biggest, I teach teachers a lot about AI in our state, and have gone to a lot of trainings myself. It's really just about playing and finding the one that works best for you. The same with VR simulations. The only thing that I would say is to please talk to the techs that you have in the building to make sure that they are appropriate for the age level and that they will work with what you have. Specifically for AI and VR, if you have specific questions or need specific ideas based on your age level, based on what you teach, please feel free to reach out to me, because I'm building those resources with some really great state help. We've had an AI summit in our state. We've had AI training that I got to go be part of and then help facilitate through Edutech. And so I'm already building those things. Reach out to me. We'll give you our info in a little bit, and I can share and tailor that information to you pretty quickly, right through email. So incorporating STEM voice and career connections in STEM, we know that it enhances, we know that it engages. We really love that it bridges the classroom learning with real world applications. These pieces are so important. And I added reflection portfolios at the end. That's where your assessment comes. That's where you can put it all together, and they can show their learning. Either, we love the family engagement piece, right? They can show that learning to entire communities. They can show it to industries. They can make a pizza that's healthy and go to a Pizza Hut and pitch their ideas. Think outside the box and know that people are willing to work with you. All it takes is asking. And if someone says no, you're going to get 6 yeses right behind that no. We find that every single day, and we love to help make those connections between the industry and the classrooms that you do. So anything else you'd like to add? All right, so here is some contact information. Hope can help you with absolutely anything that has to do with outreach, that has anything to do with making those connections. She's our connection leader here. She's even building a database, and it's huge. And I use it constantly. She knows everybody and will remember your name, but we have those connections already in those pieces. And so reach out if you have any questions. I can help on that curriculum side, or how can we get to your school, or how can we offer you professional development, or how can I find professional development where you are and get them to you. Please let us know how we can help and anything that we need to do. So we want to open it up for questions, but also we wanted to give about 10 minutes. It's almost perfect. It's 12 minutes, but about 10 minutes at the end for you to potentially click on some of those links and see if you have any questions, or if you have links yourself that are applicable to this, you can definitely add them in the chat to share. It really is about sharing and networking. I always felt like I was sort of in a silo and I had to come up with everything on my own. And especially at this position, it should be the exact opposite of that, and so that we can share as much as possible. So we're going to look here. Kristen just put in the presentation, so please feel free to click and try out those links and see if there are any questions that you have. Do some Googling. Put in links of your own that you love so we can kind of build a database. If no questions, we are done, even a little bit early, but please use these last 10 minutes to click on those links and try out stuff, and we'll stay on in case in the next 10 minutes you have any questions about absolutely anything. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for presenting all of that wealth of information and resources. It is really great to have. As people are looking and checking out all of those links, I just want to remind you that this is the last session of the day. So thank you so much for joining the 3rd annual Ready STEM Go. We will see you all back tomorrow for day 2, and that starts at 9:30 Central. So if you go to the lobby, you can see what that is in your time zone, and we'll see you tomorrow. So thank you so much, everyone.